No one can see into the future, but by analyzing patterns, certain experts can make educated guesses about what may occur. In times of war, it is exceedingly difficult to make predictions about the future, as evidenced by the aforementioned instances like weather forecasts and election polls. But sometimes concrete predictions can be made due to the pronouncements and military preparations. This has taken a significant toll on the Russian armed forces, and the recent declaration from the Ukrainian government sheds light on the dire circumstances under which the Russian armed forces have been operating. What do the Russian troops think? Supporting independent journalism is crucial if you want to keep getting news like this. So if you want to know what the Ukrainian government is saying and what is happening in the war right now, we recommend using the super thanks button down below the video. Since the beginning of the war, the Ukrainian army has been able to withstand the Russian invasion, thanks to a crucial strategic strategy. Before the commencement of the war, Ukrainian President Zelensky and the commanders met and formulated a thorough plan for resistance. According to this strategy, the Ukrainian army, having freed the majority of the previously Russian-occupied territory, will soon launch its decisive move. The Ukrainian army is conducting a large onslaught against the Russian army in what it calls the Spring Offensive. The Ukrainian army places a high value on Rome's HIMARS missiles as the most effective armament for this operation. The Ukrainian army is also expected to use snipers at strategic locations alongside Tiger tanks and Javelin missiles. Ukrainians are not the only ones talking about the Great Spring Offensive. Russian soldiers are also closely following the news about this operation. Media outlets in Ukraine have recently begun to report extensively on this operation, and everyone in Ukraine is now waiting for it. Russian soldiers are well aware of how poorly equipped their troops are. In fact, most of them don't even have enough ammunition to fight when the Ukrainian army launches its spring offensive. Thousands of Russian soldiers are expected to die in this conflict, and this is a topic of constant conversation among Russian troops. Russian soldiers are in a state of panic because they do not want to die for Putin, and they see only one option left to them: surrendering to the Ukrainian army. As you may be aware, thousands of Russian soldiers have already surrendered to the Ukrainian army since the conflict began. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has also issued a statement on the matter, which reads as follows: "The closer the contour of acid, the harder the surrender season. Don't wait for the heat. The most favorable conditions are now on April 3rd, when 200 Russian soldiers applied for surrender. I Want to Live project has received over 16,000 requests today." This statement by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry received thousands of likes in a short period of time. Some of the information in this post is indeed very important. First of all, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has started to provide more concrete data on the number of Russian soldiers who have surrendered. It is very interesting that 32,000 soldiers surrendered in just 1 month. The number is the biggest proof of how much fear the soldiers are experiencing. In the first week of May, the number of Russian soldiers surrendering is reported to have increased even more. Even before the Ukrainian army begins its spring offensive, thousands of Russian soldiers are leaving the war. The surrender of Russian soldiers makes the army's job easier. In this way, the Ukrainian army established itself as a great spirit over the Russian army, which on the other hand surrendered. The Ukrainian army obtains confessions from Russian soldiers. The Ukrainian army is able to better prepare for an offensive thanks to information provided by Russian forces on the number of weapons and soldiers in their units. Ukrainian commanders have assessed the situation on all fronts and are developing a comprehensive offensive strategy. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian army is still making extensive use of unmanned aerial vehicles to collect intelligence on the composition of the Russian military. These techniques acquire crucial data about the military might of the Russian armed forces. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry statement included another intriguing remark, which said, "The Ukrainian army continues to establish a serious superiority over Russia." Russian troops are constantly following the statements made by the Ukrainian government because Russian soldiers do not trust the media outlets in their country, which makes it easier for the Ukrainian governments to communicate. Ukraine is trying to encourage Russian soldiers to surrender by emphasizing that more and more Russian soldiers are surrendering as the spring offensive approaches. Thanks to the hotline set up by the Ukrainian government, Russian and Ukrainian troops are able to easily communicate. Russian troops can simply call the I Want to Live hotline and tell their location to Ukrainian troops. Ukrainian commanders then plot the most effective route for the Russian troops to surrender. clear a corridor for them to do so and transport the surrendered troops to a secure area in Ukraine. After some time, the captured troops are brought to the area where the surrendered troops are being held, so that the surrender of the Russian troops can be concealed until the war is over. Russian soldiers who do not wish to fight continue to surrender to the Ukrainian army, and the Ukrainian government is taking great care to ensure their safety as a result of this extraordinary project, which has caused significant damage to the Russian army. Don't forget to share their thoughts on the impact of the I Want to Live project on the course of this war. And if you agree that it is one of the most interesting projects in the history of warfare, follow us for more updates. The Ukrainian army has launched a spring offensive. How do you think this operation will turn out? What do you think about the surrender of Russian soldiers? Let us know in the comment section down below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button.